Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today I'm excited to talk to you all about my garden goals for 2025. Okay, so we are ready for the new year, and at the beginning of the year I always like to really kind of look at my goals for this year. Now, I already did a recap video of 2024 talking about all of my goals that I had then. I had 4 for last year, and which ones were successes and which ones were failures, and had a lot of successes, some failures, but we're still good. And so now going into 2025, I feel like every year that I complete another year of gardening, I learn something and I adjust my goals and my viewpoints accordingly. Most of my learning, I feel like, comes from failures. I feel like probably some of the best gardeners have probably killed the most things. I've probably killed the most plants over the years. Trying different things, experimenting, seeing what works, and being willing to be flexible throughout the entire process. And with that being said, I think it's important when you are establishing your goals for your garden or in life or whatever, that you have some flexibility within there. Last year I had one goal that I had started off with, particularly companion planting, made it partway through the year and just realized that it's just not something I really wanted to do or cared too much about. And so I just adjusted from there. And I think that's okay. It's okay to be, understanding of yourself and be like, this is not something that I still want to do or I still want to proceed with. And it's okay to let different things go and to adjust your goals for whatever your new viewpoint or direction is within your garden. I also think it's really important, while I might have some of these large overall goals, it's important to break some of these down into smaller goals. So a lot of times what you'll see me do is I have these big yearly goals, but I break them down into monthly or quarterly goals, which is extremely helpful because some projects are huge and some projects are small. I think it's important to have at least baby steps within some of these larger goals so that you can tick off and you check off these different steps that you achieved instead of having to wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months to do the one big check for the overall idea. So I definitely think breaking things down into smaller steps is wonderful for seeing progress for yourself and for your garden. Okay, so let's get on to those goals. I have 4 main goals this year. Number 1 goal for this year is gardening on a budget. That was my goal, one of my goals for last year. I feel like having that goal last year changed my outlook of gardening, which is in a good way. I really focused down on what I was spending within my garden. Now, what I spend in my garden is a little different from most just regular home gardeners, because you also have to remember that this is also like my business. This is how I make money for my family. So I do spend a little bit more into my garden because that is part of the process on growing a small business like my YouTube channel. But thinking within that, I don't do massive gardening projects all at once where I spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Typically my large gardening projects are spread out over time. I typically will collect my supplies for multiple months, find out which ones I can do for free, do a lot of things myself, but spread them out to work within the budget that I have. I also don't work with sponsors. I used to a few years ago. I had a couple of sponsors that I worked with for a short amount of time. I found that it's not for me. Because truthfully, most of the people who watch my channel aren't in a situation where they're going to be able to go buy 20 of one particular plant and plant these beautiful whatever, or, buy these super high-end products or things like that. Most of the people who watch me have some sort of budget, whether it's smaller or larger than mine. And so I really just try to work with what's around me because I think that that's more applicable for the people who are watching my channel. So with that in mind, I really feel like last year my channel really settled into me. Like it just feels more like me. It feels more like the projects I'm doing are, they fit my needs, they fit my budget, they fit, my visions. And it's less of the keeping up with the Joneses situation, if you're familiar with that term. it's less about me watching other YouTubers and thinking that I need to be like them. And that is definitely how I felt in the beginning of my channel. And in reality, now when I look back at those YouTubers that, you know, like I've watched forever, I realized that what they've done on their channel is themselves. And so instead of me trying to be them, I needed to come be myself in the channel. And gardening on a budget definitely became that focus for me. Now, 3 main ways. So I'm going to have that main goal, gardening on the budget, and I'm breaking it down into some smaller goals. So 3 main ways that I want to be gardening on a budget. First one is seed starting. I did a massive amount. I really upped my game on seed starting last year, and I had so many successes and lots of beautiful plants in my garden that I never would have been able to go purchase from a nursery. And we are already off to a really good start for 2025. I've got petunias, I've got geraniums, I've got cactus, I've got, oh, let me look behind here. I've got sea lavender, which is already sprouted. I've got delphinium going. Calamintha lupita. I've got rudbeckia, which is also already sprouted. Jupiter's beard. We have a lot of seeds already going for this year, which I'm super excited about. And it really allowed me to take a big, massive step in my garden and produce a lot of beautiful plants that I would not have been able to financially purchase. So growing them from seed has been really fun. Plus, I really enjoy the seed starting process. I love it. It fills my time in January and February and March and really allows me, gives me a level of enjoyment that I don't typically have at that time of year for gardening. All right. Also, as one of the smaller goals under gardening on a budget is propagation. And propagation is not something I've done a ton of in the past, but you all have encouraged me that I need to do more propagation, that I will find it easier to start a lot of plants. It's going to be easier to propagate some plants as opposed to starting them from seed. So we've already got a lot of propagation going, including lots of lantana. We've got Swedish ivy, tradescantia. We did heirloom mums, a lot of propagation already going, and we are going to continue that process this next year. I haven't decided what plants it is that I'm going to be propagating. I've kind of been compiling a list of ideas and thoughts, but if there are some particular plants within my garden that you would like to see propagated, let me know. Just drop a comment below. Okay, and then finally, under the gardening on a budget, dividing and transplanting. So we're going to be doing a really big install of a new garden at the back in the backyard. Instead of just going and buying all new plants to go in that garden, I am going to be dividing a lot of what I already have, because this garden is, we've been in this house 7 years this December, and this garden is getting to the 4 to 5 year mark. Lots of aspects of this garden are getting to the 4 to 5 year mark, and it's time to start dividing perennials. It's also time to start transplanting things that have gotten larger in areas that I didn't really consider that, or moving things that aren't flourishing as well as they should, moving them to different places. So there is going to be a lot of dividing and transplanting in 2025. So all 3 of those things are going to be great for gardening on a budget. If there's anything else you would like to see in regards of gardening on a budget, just drop those comments below and I'll see if I can work it in throughout the year. Okay, number 2 on my goal list is the backyard garden extension. So this is going to be my big project for the year. I don't actually think I'm going to finish this project in 1 year. I think it's potentially going to take me at least 2 years, because this is one of those projects where you start on one side and it just keeps going and leading to other things. And the reality of it is money and time. Do I have those things to complete the project in 1 year? And most likely, no, I don't. But that's okay. Gardens take time. So basically what we're doing is the back half of the garden, where we have the troughs against the retaining wall in the back, we are going to be pulling out, we're going to be leaving that stuff, but we're going to be pulling out the garden line forward and creating mostly garden space back there, which is going to be lovely. I'm so excited to get rid of the grass. Not a fan of grass. I don't like caring for grass. And so I'll be really happy not to have that there. So we're going to be creating some massive new garden beds. With that being said, this is going to require a low retaining wall, and I do plan on building the low retaining wall myself. I've been toying back and forth about how I want to go about it. Do I want to collect free products off of Facebook Marketplace, build it a little bit at a time? Do I want to just buy retaining wall bricks? Like, how do I want to go about it? So I'm still working on that and trying to figure that out, but I do know that I want to do it myself. And with that being said, that is going to be really hard on my body to build a retaining wall. So my plan is to work section at a time, creating that space. And it might be like creating a section with a retaining wall and such, and even go ahead and filling in with plants and stuff, and then going to the next section. So I am going to do a little bit at a time instead of trying to do the whole project at once. And within that backyard garden extension, we are going to be laying a lot of new drip irrigation. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to be transplanting and dividing a lot of existing plants from throughout all of my garden spaces and moving portions of them to the backyard. So we're really going to try to do a massive garden install at the smallest price possible is really the end goal. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to try some new plants. We're going to be growing a lot from seed. There will still be plants that I'll be buying from nurseries because I like to. It brings me joy to shop for plants. And so I will take you guys through that process. It'll be a long drawn out process, probably longer than the shade garden. And I'm also someone where like I work for a little while and then I take a break from that project and move on and do something else and then come back to it. And it really, you know, I just have to be fueled by a certain level of, you know, creativity or inspiration in order to be able to complete projects. So we will take breaks throughout that process. Okay, number 3 on my garden goals is refining my drip irrigation. So I've done a lot of drip irrigation throughout my backyard. It has all been DIY. I've done everything myself along the way. And I've definitely tried to show you guys the drip irrigation process as I went. I would like to do a really good definitive video on starting drip irrigation, talking about my failures and successes and showing a basic install. Really like to do that this year. I would also really like to go through and refine different areas. Like I would like to adapt my drip irrigation system to individual plants. Instead of having lots and lots of tubing that has emitters however many inches, I would like to start leaning towards solid tubing and then just placing emitters where the water is needed, because I don't want to water bare areas that aren't needing water, because that would be wasteful. So I really want to kind of really individualize to different plants instead of trying to water everything as a whole. I'd also like to work on increasing my water pressure, maintaining my water pressure, and we talked a little bit about that this year, where basically we need a loop connection. We need all the tubing to work and loop back into itself, and that helps maintain the water pressure. So I'll be exploring that as well. I want to install some cutoff valves so that I can turn off water to different areas of the garden when those portions of the garden are not in use. And specifically like right now, for the winter, I only have a few garden beds that need to be watered and upkept. However, because they're linked to one big whole thing, I have to water the whole thing. So I definitely want to look into installing some shutoff valves in order to just water the areas that are needing water. And then I think that the backyard garden extension is going to allow me to show you all a lot about drip irrigation, because I'll be installing all new drip irrigation there. And the incredible focus is going to be being really stringent with my water, making sure that we're not overwatering, that we're not overusing water, you know, because we don't want to waste the water throughout the process. So don't think that you have to do it all at once. I certainly did not do it all at once. I did it little by little, and I've continued to build onto my system. So I'll show a lot of adding onto my system this year, and then we'll talk about refining my drip irrigation throughout the entire year. Okay, and then number 4 on my list, I only have 4 goals. This one is seems kind of weird. It is using what I grow. I could definitely do a better job. Found that this last year, a lot of flowers, I just did not keep up with harvesting the flowers. And I think it's because my mindset was like, well, I don't want to arrange them right now. When in reality, I should have just been like, oh, I'll just harvest these and give these to a neighbor or a friend or family member and let them harvest them. I could only see the end product of an arrangement as opposed to just harvesting and giving away, or even harvesting and just dunking them in a vase, right? You know, it doesn't have to be this big, beautiful, elaborate, you know, flower arrangement every time. And so I definitely want to do a better job with harvesting my blooms throughout the entire season. I think a lot of the issue with that is a lot of times I don't want to go out and harvest because it's hot. which is just silly. And when I look at it, I'm like, seriously, you couldn't just go do that? I don't know why. Harvesting when it's hot outside is incredibly unpleasant for me. I don't enjoy it very much. So that's something I kind of ran into. And then also when I didn't harvest, my flowers stopped blooming, because a lot of my flowers that I grow, my cut flowers I grow, are cut and come again. So the more you cut on them, the more blooms they produce. And it seems like a lot of wasted effort to start with this itty bitty seed in January, to grow on this seedling, plant the seedling outside, and nurture and watch it grow until late summer when I can finally harvest it, and then cutting, not cutting it, right? Not cut a seed. And I only got that one bloom off of it because I didn't get out there to cut it. So definitely want to work on harvesting my blooms, even if I'm not going to use them in arrangements. Next, I want to focus more on the few veggies and fruits that I do grow. I don't grow a ton of veggies and fruits. I like to grow peppers. I really enjoyed growing eggplant this last year. I grew lemons, which went really well. I also grew loofah. I grew birdhouse gourds. I grew a lot of things. I want to do a better job specifically with the veggies and fruits, harvesting them and freezing them. I did a lot of harvesting, bringing them in, and forgetting to use them. That's not great. So what's the point, And it's typically because it seems like the times when it's time to harvest tends to be my bigger times, busier times a year, specifically for my family. And so I just don't have as much time for cooking. So what I really want to do is I want to harvest these vegetables, and I'm probably not going to be using them fresh. I want to instead come in, chop them up, quick freeze them, and then package them away until I can use them specifically during the winter, because I love pulling out these frozen vegetables to make chilies and soups and stews and stuff like that throughout the winter. So definitely want to have less waste on those. And then also, the more I'm harvesting those, the more that they will continue to produce. So I think that that is going to be really important for me, but definitely taking the time to bring in this harvest, take care of them, and get them into the freezer, I think will be better in the long run. I mean, I currently have some frozen, but I definitely could have frozen a whole lot more throughout the season instead of them just wasting away on my countertop. And it kind of leans into, I'm going to be doing this whole underconsumption thing that's been trending for 2025. It's basically where you're using less consumer products. And I think that lends itself to that as well, using a lot of what's in my garden. I am happy with what I've done so far with my birdhouse gourds. Let me show y'all some of these. They're kind of cool. A bunch of my birdhouse gourds are almost dry already. They're not even cold to the touch anymore. And they're like super light now. So we're doing really excited. These birdhouse gourds are going to be used for fall decor. I don't think I have enough for this year, but maybe the year after I would like to make a whole beautiful wreath of these brown mottled birdhouse gourds for the fall. I think it would just be gorgeous. And I did a good job harvesting those and growing those, and we're going to grow them again. And loofahs. I did a great job harvesting my loofahs. Lots of them are dry. They're not all completely dry. Once they're all completely dry, I'm going to show you how I'm going to make sponges to hopefully have sponges for all of 2024, which would be great. And also leans into that underconsumption core, because I do buy a lot of sponges. I'm one of those people that once my sponge starts to smell weird, I don't like to keep it anymore. I buy a lot of sponges throughout the season. And so even just not buying sponges, it might save me like $30, $40 this year, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's all those little things that start to add up. So really focusing on using what I'm growing in my garden. It seems like a waste, and I feel like a failure when I'm not utilizing the things within my garden. Like, why am I doing this? So that's going to be a real big focus. Now, following that idea, using what I grow in the garden, I would also like to push that just a step further, and I would consider composting with all my excess trimmings. I haven't worked that out in my head. I can't decide, am I somebody who wants to buy like a composter, like one of those like gadgets that like swirls the compost and everything? Or am I more basic in that I want to set up like a 3-cage system where you basically, put up some chicken wire and like this, you move pile to pile to pile, and you allow the piles to, disintegrate at different rates. I haven't decided what that looks like for me, and a lot of that is in regards to space and being aware of my neighbors, because I don't want to cause any unnecessary stenches or animals trying to get into our yard to get into the compost or bothering them. So that's kind of something that's still working out in my head, but I would like to, a lot of these trimmings and stuff, what can I do with these and where can I put them instead of just putting them in the trash, because that's not helping anybody, right? And I could turn that stuff into compost, and if I'm able to turn it into compost, well, that would be awesome. I mean, it would be extremely useful in my garden. It would probably be way better compost than what I can purchase. And a lot of y'all have probably been doing this for decades and have already been utilizing stuff in your garden. So I'd be very interested to know your thoughts. If there's areas that you think that you know within my garden that I can better use my resources. So drop me a comment below and let me know about that as well. So those are my 4 main goals for 2024. I typically stick to 4. Now, I used to do 5 and 6. It was too many goals, so I refined them and I got down to about 4. I think eventually I will have just 3 main goals. So I'm down to 4 goals and then smaller things within them. Now, there will be additional goals that will come up throughout the year. There's always something that comes up in the garden that we have to deal with, and like armadillos. That was one of my nemesis this last year. So, there are going to be different goals that come up, and that's okay. You can change your goals and you can refine your goals along the way. So can I. I also want to remind yourself, if you don't achieve your goals, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to fail. Totally okay to fail. I think you learn a lot more from failure than you do from successes. It's okay to not achieve your goals. Adjust and do what works best for you instead. Life happens quite frequently, right? Like if I end up, having an injury or an illness for myself or my family, that changes the direction of my goals consistently. If money becomes an issue, that changes things significantly. So if things don't work out, it's okay. Give yourself grace. It is completely okay if they don't work out. If you're one of those persons who has a hard time achieving these big lofty goals, reduce these goals, make them smaller and simpler to achieve, right? Break them down into smaller pieces. And then that is going to fuel your inspiration throughout the process. That's going to keep you determined and keep you pushing forward as you achieve these smaller goals along the way. All right, so I would love to hear what your goals are for 2025. Last year, this was one of my most favorite videos to do because simply from the comments that you all left telling me about what your goals and your inspiration were, because it inspired me. So if you've gotten to the end of this video, drop a comment below. And if you've gotten to the end of this video and you drop the comment, read the other comments, like and comment on other people's comments, because this is the time where we're all gaining inspiration and momentum into the upcoming spring. All right, you all, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow my channel so much. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, just drop me an emoji below, letting me know that you made it to the end of the video and that you say hi. And be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If the TikTok ban goes into effect, all my short format videos will be on YouTube Shorts, because they're the only other group that pays their creators. Instagram pays nothing. Facebook pays some very small amount. So I'll be focusing on YouTube Shorts, so you can find me there as well. As always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.